So with the pelvic clock series, as we've gone over in class, is about awareness, subtlety, and also comparison of changes or noticing smaller and smaller differences within one's body. Because sometimes with this kind of work, changes are going to happen. You will notice a change, hopefully, but the athlete or your client might not. And so them becoming aware of smaller and smaller differences within their body is essential for their growth, essential for them to learn how to control their body with more subtlety and be aware of just what happens. So with the pelvic clock, we'll start with a body scan of just how their body rests into the ground, where there's pressure. I might have them imagine that they're a stick figure and what that looks like, where their bones are aligned or positioned. And then once we get into the work, I'll have them bring their feet up and we'll just start really subtly going towards 6 and 12 o'clock, meaning my sacrum is on the clock, 6 o'clock is into extension, 12 o'clock is in deflection. And what we'll want to see is that there's just very slight or appropriate engagement of the muscles. I like that my head is moving with my pelvis, showing that there's a connection through my rib cage here. I'll oftentimes have them just relax in between, maybe rescan their body of what's changed, and then resume. And then the progression from 6 and 12 o'clock, as they show proficiency, or I've spent a few minutes with this, will be to 3 o'clock into 9 o'clock. So, ideally, your knees don't drop in with their pelvis, but that this knee goes on top of that foot, and that foot starts becoming more weight-bearing and somewhat getting more dorsiflexion. But you can also see that my rib cage barely moves. Or if it does, it's just the bottom portion. If the top portion doesn't turn either direction. If they can't keep their knees in place, meaning maybe they shift their knees both to the side, I'll have them exaggerate it, meaning, okay, let your knees go too far as your pelvis turns, or too far the other direction. So that would be too far out to this side as my pelvis would turn, and then have them try to find that middle ground again, or have their hands on their thighs for awareness. And then maybe do 5 to 10 on the other side. Maybe have a break, have their feet go out if they could, and relax, notice any changes, and then go back to the work. Eventually being able to rock easily from side to side. Maybe noticing differences in how the weight is distributed through their feet, themselves noticing or you noticing. You can also maybe help them keep one knee still and just guide their pelvis for them. And then eventually we will want to go all the way around the clock. So from 12 to 1, to 2, to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It might also be useful to take from a big clock where there's a lot of motion to a very small clock. So it's just the most inner part of my sacrum going along the clock, a much more subtle motion and going both directions. And then when they're done, have them body scan, see if they notice any differences, have them walk, see if you notice differences, if they notice differences, see if they can control their pelvis better in, say, their hip hinge or any single leg work that you're currently doing. And that's that for supine pelvic clock. And now on to kneeling pelvic clock, where we'll want to start again very subtle with the same progression of 6 to 12, and then 3 to 9. And I'm purposely trying to keep the rotation out of my chest. So I might have my hands here for feedback as I just rotate my pelvis without this upper hand moving. Or again, 6 to 12 with minimal involvement of my upper body. I could also hinge a little bit and go into flexion, extension, rotation. If I find a side that is more challenging, I might rep that side out a little bit more. Another piece of feedback would be maybe putting their head on a wall, or them holding their head in place from behind. So on a wall, I could put my head here and just rotate from side to side. Nice. Notice that my shoulders are moving, so I'm going to put my hands on my shoulders as well. And again, just try to differentiate the motion in my pelvis. Some people might side bend to get into their hip, and we would want more rotation. The more hip flexion they get, more rotation will probably be possible. And then they should be able to get a full circle all the way around the clock, both directions. And again, you can also shrink the size of the clock that it gets really small.